12th at about 4:33 p.m. This is the time and place for the Grand Forks Growth Fund Committee. Item 1, welcome and roll call.
Crary. Here. Wolf.
Here.
Kvamme.
Here.
Osowski. Here. Weigel.
Here.
Whitney. Here. Wolf. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 2, minutes from November 7th, 2022. Any discussions or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second. Got a motion by Whitney, second by Kvamme. Sorry, my phone rang right in the process of me trying to talk. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3, past due loans. Ms. Richards.
Well, I'll just preamble a bit, and starting with an apology, I think. There's no recommended action other than to discuss on both of these loans. We expected to have both Mr. Dowell and Ms. Burns here to kind of make their case for you. The situation is that they're both past due. They have each made a request. One is more or less restructuring, one is mostly just forbearance. There's not really any recommendation from staff that you should pursue the restructure request. We're more interested in hearing if you're interested in giving these people another chance or if enough is enough. Andy can and will provide a little more detail on the specifics of each one, but we were expecting each of these principals to be here to make their case to you. Without that, I don't know how that colors your feelings towards moving forward or not, but that was the intention that they both represented, that they would be here, and as of now, they aren't. So,
And you haven't heard from them? So
not today.
it's a surprise that
Not
they're not
today.
here. Okay.
Yep.
So with that, I'll let Andy kind of walk through the situation with each of these two loans, and then we'll see where we go.
Right. So the first company, I guess, as Meredith mentioned, is Mobile Recon Systems. You may recall a couple years ago now, they received $400,000 total of growth fund support in 2 separate tranches. This is also in partnership with Choice Bank, as well as the North Dakota Development Fund. They are quite delinquent with us on this loan. As of the end of November, they were 211 days past due. As I understand it, and after attempting to reach out to the company over the first 90 days, as we typically do, through regular late notices and that sort of thing. As I understand, they had some turnover in executive leadership, as well as some COVID-related issues and some other things. As of today, it appears that they've at least scaled down operations at their existing facility on Ryland Road. And we were able to meet with Mr. Dowell a couple times over the past several months, starting back in September. Just as recently as, I believe, the end of November, we sat down and talked with him and kind of framed out this sort of request for less of a restructure, more forbearance, as Meredith said. But his intention is to move forward with this. It sounds like a crowdfunding, sort of entrepreneurial crowdfunding called Start Engine, to secure sufficient funds, a significant investment round through that, to which he has told us he would then pay off his outstanding debt, or his past due outstanding debt, and as of March 1st be back on track with his amortization schedule as though nothing happened. So we also checked with the Development Fund and Choice Bank, and he is delinquent with both of them as well. Choice discussed essentially that he explained similar things to them, that this Start Engine crowdfunding was his next step. And as I understand it, they have tentatively agreed to a similar forbearance up to, I think, February 1st of this year to get caught up on their past due debt, and then again continue the notes as planned, I believe. We also communicated to Mr. Dowell to reach out to the Development Fund to ensure that they're on the same page. With that, like we had said, we hoped he would be here. We had planned on him being here, so I'm certainly happy to stand for any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Mr. Gosted, Mr. Conlon, Ms. Richards? Mr. Gavami?
We're kind of at the mercy right now of waiting a little bit longer, I suppose, to,
We have Collins down in the lobby down there, just in case anyone's turned around in City Hall, so we'll see.
otherwise,
We did talk, like I said, I talked to the development fund, as well as Choice, and they're, as of now, Choice is moving forward with this forbearance piece, I believe, for, I think, like I said, February 1st of 2023. So, as I understand Mr. Dowell's request is that this Start Engine crowdfunding campaign is underway or will soon be underway. He's not able to access the first draw of those funds until, I don't recall off the top of my head, mid-January or end of January, something like that, which is what, where his proposal to make his February payment, and then between February 1st and March 1st, get caught up on the, 42,000 and change. It'll be close to 50,000 by then, get caught up on that outstanding balance by March 1st, and then continue on the existing amortization schedule, as planned. I'll also just mention the security we have for this, this loan is a blanket UCC on business assets, as we typically do. This is EDA RLF funds, so we also have the personal guarantee from Mr. Dowell and his wife. So that's where our security lies anyway on this.
so we could comfortably wait till February 1, and then we could start to move forward with what it is, if we wanted to align with the other entities.
We certainly could. That's part of the, I think like Meredith says, it's sort of taking your temperature on that. Is if we go that route and wait till February 1st, I don't know that there's nothing from a restructure standpoint. It just he'll continue to accrue interest and past due fees until that time. At which point we can certainly circle back with Choice and kind of see how things go. But again, just communicating as best we know what we've heard.
As my question, I'm assuming we still collect interest while we're waiting if we agree to wait till February 1st.
It has been
So far, our track record on waiting hasn't been in our favor, but at the same time, it's 2 months. So, I mean, whether we say we're not getting it back in 2 months or now, I'm not sure it really makes that much of a difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess our risk also, and Amy, to your point about our track record not being great on waiting, are we going to be back here in 2 months again, saying that the crowdfunding wasn't as successful as, they thought? I don't know. I mean, is there any, and I don't know enough about crowdfunding, I guess, to know, the structure, and do we have any sort of evidence at all in terms of what to expect from a success rate for that?
So I was
outside?
from a crowdfunding perspective, unless he's putting in 125%, it's all on them to do the marketing. So I guess I'd want to understand, how are they trying to maximize the crowdfunding platform, and what are they doing to try and maximize? But he's not here to answer those questions, because those would be questions I would be asking him about the crowdfunding is, what's his plan, what's his strategy? That's how crowdfunding campaigns are successful. You have to market the heck out of your company to drive them to the platform, to then get people to make the investment through but he's not here. We can't ask him that question.
Yeah, I can't find anything on Start Engine.
Unless you create an account or whatever, 'cause I'm
Yeah.
looking too.
I guess, does it, maybe this is a question for Mr. Gosted, are we in any worse a condition to exercise any of our rights in February versus now?
Councilmember Gavami, I think can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. You're going to be in the same security position. You've got a UCC and a guarantee. I don't know if you're in a first or a second with respect to Choice. I suspect you're in a second position. So, if Choice doesn't get paid, they'll start I presume they'll start their collection activity shortly thereafter. I'm not sure I'd necessarily wait until March. If, for example, he fails to meet the terms of the choice forbearance, I think that would be sufficient for us to, or to consider anyways, pursuing and not waiting till March timeframe. And because at that point, the crowdfunding thing had, as I understand, the timeline will have been completed and another creditor still has not been paid. So if you're going to consider this, I'd go ahead and, I think the extension, whether it's a 60-day extension or, in this case, it's effectively 75 days, but you're in the same security position. But if you're going to do that, I would also tie it to compliance with the choice, so that if he doesn't meet the payment to choice, that would trigger, that would end your forbearance into March as well. And you'd start your collection activities at that point. So you're aligning yourself with the choice loan as well.
Thank you, Mr. Gossett.
One
Mr.
added piece of context too, I just wanted to add in conversation with Choice. And again, this was conversations occurring towards the tail end of last week, so it's still quite fresh stuff. But as I understand it anyway, again, in that not yet executed, but agreed to, I think, arrangement with Choice for the forbearance, they indicated that they would be taking it, I'm not sure what position, but subordinate mortgage against Mr. Dowell's home in exchange for the forbearance, or granting the forbearance. Presumably, didn't get to that level of detail in the email, but presumably forgiven once that outstanding debt is paid. But again, just to add a bit of context that we were aware of.
Mr.
Thank you, Chair Weigel. Mr. Gossett, quick question. So, not that I think we should become more strict than, a local lender or anything, but how would this work, mechanically? If we're in second position and Choice is in first, if they have technically defaulted on ours, and if we wanted to pursue our rights in the contract and remedy that, but Choice is in the primary and they don't, does that force them into satisfying Choice before us? Could we theoretically even still pursue a payment or remedy based on the contract in the second position when the primary position is going to forbearance?
If you're in a second position and you foreclose or repossess the personal property, the first lien is going to be with Choice. So whatever assets you'd be able to convert to cash, Choice would have the first bite at the apple. You've got your personal guarantee. Now, in the context of that, given that they're granting a mortgage, kind of shoring up their security position a little bit, that asset may not be available for recovery if you pursue personal guarantee. So you'd have to look at other assets that Mr. Dowell and his wife may own. I don't know what their financial position is. So to answer your question, if you're in a second position on collateral and you convert that collateral to cash, you'd have to pay the funds to the first lien holder first before you'd get any. But you'd still have the personal guarantee, and you'd then start looking for other assets that might be available that the Dowells would own if you get a judgment on the guarantee.
And thank you, Mr. Gossett. And I'm not advocating going that route. I was just wondering how that would work. So in the second position, we could theoretically force Choice's hand by saying, hey, you're, in breach of contract. We want to exercise, liquidate and pay us back. But by doing that, you actually have to pay Choice back first, even though Choice is saying that they're willing to give them some time. It's just, it just brings up a good conversation. I've never heard the legal side of it, and I'm not advocating that. I was just was curious on how that would all work, even if we wanted to.
Actually, Choice could sit back and watch us do all the work, and then they'd
Yeah, and then they would collect, right.
Good question,
Interesting.
Mr.
Thank you,
Curry.
Gossett.
This got Colin passing out staff reports, both including some information on this item, just to have in front of you. We also updated the staff report earlier today pertaining to sort of the next item as well. So just want to make sure everyone's got the most updated copy in front of them.
Mr. Holth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, I just have a comment. Communication goes a long way, and, you know, if you know, the businesses that we're referring to in this meeting are watching this, or other businesses that are considering working with us, I mean, it's really difficult for us to make these decisions without having a conversation with somebody and asking some really important questions. It's also really frustrating, frankly, you know, for staff to have to work really hard to try to make contact with people and to make multiple attempts without. So I have found this body to be very reasonable and willing to work with people, understanding that things happen, but it makes it really challenging when we're not able to even have a conversation. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Mr. Holth. Anybody else? From what it sounds like, seems that just reading the temperature, give them till February and then revisit it then. The only thing I would add is we're 8 months into this. Maybe instead of 8 months, that if we're have somebody that's pretty far behind, maybe 6 months behind, this body will know about it versus waiting 8, because maybe we can be a little more responsive at that point too. And I know you guys have been working hard on that, so that's no slight against what our staff is doing, but it'd be good to kept in the know a little bit.
Can I make a recommendation?
Mr. Kerr.
90 days, 3 months, just so we're kept in the loop. Not that we have to do anything, but just so we're kind of just aware.
Works for
Right.
me.
Absolutely. We can do that. We, you know, like you mentioned, trying to get a hold of folks so we get some context and information to provide you folks, but we can certainly do that even just that we haven't made contact. We can certainly do that.
Well, and I wonder too, if we know earlier that they're struggling, there might be service providers in the region that could be recommended to them to get some support as a way to maybe improve our ability to have the not default on the other end.
Absolutely.
Kind of re-engage that small business development center that put most of them in front of us as part of their resources, right? Re-engage them on that support side partway through.
For sure, yeah.
All right. I believe we got one more loan to discuss.
We
Mr.
do,
Conlon.
yes. Thank you. The other one you'll see before you is a startup loan from early 2021, January 2021 for Amy's Place LLC. If you'll recall, it's a restaurant essentially operating at Grand Forks Air Force Base. The initial deferral period for that loan was, you know, as it would have been January earlier this year. We had originally tried to make contact with Ms. Burns kind of up front and were successful right away. We then struggled over the past 6 months, 7 months or so to try and get a hold of her to find out what was going on, what the scenario was. We were able to get a hold of her by phone just last week and met on Friday of last week, and she explained and has put together the letter. I wanted to have that in front of you. The letter sort of explaining the past year that she's had, just kind of walking through just kind of a series of issues, both between COVID-related issues, as well as, you know, some unanticipated staffing shifts that she wasn't aware of out at the base, as well as some personal issues outlined in the letter. Just kind of a very full year, to say the least. So her request is more, I think it would amount to more of a restructure. It's because we had just spoken on Friday. We don't have a specific request for you, other than that about $300 a month is what she's comfortable with right now, knowing what she knows now and being in the kind of the down part of her year for traffic out at the base. Staff suggestion, if this is something that this group would entertain, would be sort of to grant that $300 a month for, say, the next year or something like that, or 6 months, or whatever that period is, to at least get her chipping away, making some progress on the loan. And then hopefully that puts her in a position where, and hopefully she has a year where, you know, of less challenges, where she can get a full year of business and growing the business, hopefully the way she wants to and has indicated she wants to you know, kind of drive that forward. So that would be our sort of soft recommendation. It's just we arrived at that $300 figure in our conversation last week, and without knowing over the life of a $30,000 loan, that's a 10-year amortization, and just, it's probably not ideal. So the hope would be to accommodate maybe on the front end of that, and then, things improve, things get better, and then, she's in a position to be able to pay it off later on. So this loan, again, security-wise, it's a startup loan, so it's pretty light. Even the security against lien against the business assets, not necessarily worth a ton, we don't think. So that's sort of our what we're considering, or up for your consideration. And again, happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Holt?
Might be a question for Mr. Gosted, but I noticed in the staff report, it said that you turned this over to collections or to the city attorney's office for collections in July. Anything from a process perspective that needs to be undone there or anything, or has that process begun, or are we, no?
No, the process hasn't been commenced. For a $30,000 loan, it costs money to do those collection activities. And I just wanted to add one thing to Mr. Conlon's comments, is that if you're going to extend this, give something of a break with respect to the payment of $300 a month, you could, you could maybe make a balloon payment at some point in time in the future, in the near future. You can always refinance that once the balloon comes up, but it at least will trigger an event sooner rather than later, rather than having it termed out for an entire 10-year period of time. Just something to think about, for the committee to think about.
Thank you, Mr. Gosted. Mr. Kavami?
What was the original debt service that she had signed up for?
This is a $30,000 loan from us.
And it was 5 years?
Yeah, it's a 5-year full term. First year is deferred and then repaid over the following 4 years.
4 years.
So I believe her payment was $30,000. I think those are $691 and change, I think, is what the monthly payment is on that. So, like I said, indicated Friday that she was comfortable with the $300 a month for the time being. Again, I think she outlines that in her letter a bit, is that the winter months at the base are very much down months for her business-wise. So that's kind of what she was comfortable with now. And then, again, as Mr. Gossett said, that'd be an approach that we would probably take if you're amenable to that, would be, $300 for a year or whatever the term, this committee's comfortable with the balloon payment at the end of it, and then that forces that action to have by the end of that time period, we would be back here with maybe it's an extension, maybe it's increasing the payment or a new schedule, that sort of thing. But yeah.
So to be clear, she never made a payment?
Correct.
Anybody else?
And we know she says in her letter, she is doing business at the base.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
That's part of why we continued to follow up after we weren't able to get a hold of her, and she did explain, kind of variety of different reasons why our communication methods, she said, didn't reach her. But part of why we continued to reach out was because, on Facebook it showed she was continually posting specials and operating and that stuff more recently. So that said, wasn't at the time, kind of as she outlines the past year with more of the personal challenges, we weren't back checking back then whether or not she was or wasn't open. And as she indicated back then, her ability to be open for regular business was hampered by the variety of circumstances. So, but more recently, we know she was still operating, so we tried a variety of different means to contact her, and were eventually successful with the phone.
So, again, thinking about this graduated kind of way of doing this, would it potentially be amenable? I'm appreciating that she's willing to try and pay something towards it, and has brought forward an amount and a strategy, and especially if we know that the business is open. Maybe we could do okay, let's do 3 months of this, and, it can continue if we see a payment, coming in for those 3 months, and then we don't have to revisit it if we see that she's making payments. But if we don't see something over a course of 3 months, we could just, pull the trigger and know that it's default at that point,
We
but
could-
give her an option to try and let her demonstrate that she could do something at 300 if she's brought that amount forward.
Well, we
Would be
could
a
certainly
suggestion
do
I would
too,
bring forward to this group.
you know, whether, maybe if it's a 12-month term or something, it's a 12-month, $300 a month, with a balloon payment at the end of 12 months, and then we could track that internally as staff, as if we're not getting payments still, after that, after, you know, whatever, you know, 2 months, 3 months, we could come back and check back in, and if we're back before the end of the year, then it's not going well. We could set it up in that way as well.
I mean, we could technically do 2 months, seeing we're going to see Mobile Recon technically in February. We can revisit this one and do them together
Right.
as a group.
Sure, we can definitely give a, first update on that. If that's an approach you guys are comfortable with setting a, you know, I allow about 12 months as the amortization or whatever, and then with just, whether it's, you know, 2 months and then check in and see how we're doing, regular check-ins, we can definitely do.
Go ahead.
Well, first, I wish Ms. Burns was here, obviously, both not only to Mr. Hull's point, but obviously I'd want to give her a little condolences. And I mean, she's had a rough year, and that's real, that's impactful. And so I feel for her. I'm really sorry that she had to even go through that. So I wish she was here to at least offer that. I do appreciate the fact that, and again, this has already been said, but I do appreciate also the fact that she's willing to give it a shot, and she's willing to, she seems genuine in the email, and so I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt of that too. And again, it'd be nice to have her here in person, but she seems very genuine, you know, in the email, that she wants to make it right, and I think that it'd be pretty indicative in the next year whether that is feasible or not. Regardless of her intentions, it'll be evidence if it's feasible or not. And so I do like the idea of doing like a 1 year, a 1 year period of whatever that dollar amount is. And if you're making those, great. And then we can address it in that time. Because obviously at this point now we can all agree that, okay, things are being repaid, and now let's get back on a normal schedule again. So I can't foresee, or I would hope for anybody's sake, that she won't have a similar year that she previously had. So I think we should give her a good, honest chance and a fair fighting chance to do it. And yeah, and I wish her the best, and I wish she was here so we could tell her all that in person too. But I do like that plan, and I would be supportive of that plan of have her paying something for a duration of time, and then we can reassess and see if we can get back on a normal schedule.
She did seem very genuine when we met with her just late last week, and her fear of speaking to you in this setting was palpable. That might be why she's not here. I mean, she did send the letter as she promised, and she did say all the right things in terms of, you know, believability for Andy and me.
Yeah, and that's sufficient for me, and I get that, and especially if I was her, I wouldn't want to go over maybe some of the stuff that was, you know, articulated either on a public forum. So I totally respect that, totally get that. So thank you, Ms. Richards, for sharing that, because that's all. I don't need to personally see her either, as long as you have that comfort level, and let's give her a shot.
In the interest of time, we still have 2 more things. Is there anybody against what we talked about as far as what Mr. Curry laid out, Mr. Conlon, and anybody else?
Could we just ensure that there's maybe a short leash, just if there's a late payment, if it's something where we're agreeing to something that's less than half of what she agreed to when the loan was originated, I just wouldn't want to see that go 2 or 3 months without a payment.
Yep,
Right.
we can do that for sure.
And we can certainly, even if we're not coming with an action item or a particular request, just kind of a loan update on some of these that are a little problematic.
That would be appreciated. I think just periodic updates on some of these would be great.
Yep, we can do that. And then for that, do we need a motion for that one if we're going to do?
I think we're good just with the consensus
Okay.
that we've reached here. If the committee's comfortable with that, I am.
Okay.
That's what it looks like. We'll move on to item number 4. Updates, 4.1.
In terms of updates, that can be really quick. The first item is that RWIP, Regional Workforce Impact Grant Program, that was the 1.7 million. I linked you to the last staff report. It's all good news. The state has basically approved all of the requests that were submitted. And not only that, they've removed the requirement for the JDA to be the fiscal agent, so the awards are going to be made directly to the subrecipients, so all good. The second piece is an update on the Hive, and that was mostly just to give you folks the opportunity to walk through there before city council. The furniture was delivered last week, and it's not done, but it's looking really good, and we would like the opportunity for you folks to have a sneak peek and take a look. So if you want to brave the cold and run across the street in time to get back by 5:30, we'd be happy to give you a quick tour.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. Item 5 is adjournment. Is there a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
Moved by Whitney, second by Crary. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.